From counting change to hacking Lotus Notes, this is Confluent Developer.
It's kind of something they don't know. That I'm just stealing their absolute great questions, and I'm like making my stuff better based on those questions. They asked me to figure out what I could find. So a little bit of a hack job, I guess, is what I would call it. This was kind of exciting, maybe kind of illegal.
Hello there, everyone. I'm Tim Berglund. Welcome to Confluent Developer, the podcast where we talk to software developers of all stripes about some of the most interesting problems they've solved. Today, I talked to Daniel Hinojosa, a longtime friend and conference speaker and trainer on diverse topics covering just about everything in Java and data generally. And you know what? When he was in college, maybe he couldn't count change backwards, but he could figure out how to make Lotus Notes do some things that maybe it shouldn't have done. Let's listen in. Dano, welcome to the show.
Hi.
What is it that you do, Daniel?
I am an everybody. I don't know if I'm an everybody. But I am a programmer. I usually just, there are a lot of titles flowing around today. So I try to keep it humble as much as I can. I know there's a lot of, and good for them. I don't want to say anything about everybody else's title. I know there's a lot more AI titles, and I will never do that. Although I do dabble in AI, but
never in your title. Never in your title.
Never in my title. So I like to keep it plain and generic, and just say programmer with a butt, and that butt can fly everywhere. It could go into. It's typically in the data space. So you know what? I'll probably add a data engineer, I guess.
That's fair.
So wrangling data and dealing with Kafka, Spark, and Flink, and Iceberg, and all that other good stuff. So
teacher, trainer, speaker.
Teacher, trainer, speaker, and I speak at No Fluff and DevNexus. Usually I'm in DevNexus, but it's their right to give me a break every once in a while. So maybe some years you won't see me. Some you would. I really love DevNexus a lot. So yeah, I like that part. I like speaking a lot. I like learning a lot, and one of the weird things is, like, by teaching and doing speaking, I learn a lot from the audience, and that's kind of it's kind of something they don't know. That I'm just stealing their absolute great questions, and I'm like making my stuff better based on those questions.
Exactly, and ask questions that you don't know, and that's how you push the boundaries of edge cases you hadn't thought of, and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Yes. That's the discomfort or learning by discomfort.
Exactly. Now, you and I have known each other for a long time, but I don't know, what was your first job?
My first job is aplenty. I guess my first job was, back when I was young, the church was just looking for someone to fill their office, and they had a PC there that I would just try to hack into and see what I could do. But I don't know if that's really a job. But my first job is a very interesting story. I was at the University of New Mexico. I believe I was doing Calc 3, so I was already doing advanced math. Mm-hmm. We had a restaurant right across the university called The Frontier. And as part of the interview, this isn't my first job, by the way. I'm leading up to it. But as part of the interview, they were saying, hey, this is how you count change backwards. I'm like, count change backwards? What are you talking about? Well, if the order is 1668, then you count backwards to 20, which I think many of you already know, right? So you just count. But for me, I'm already in kind of advanced math at university. Everything has been top down, and
maybe your arithmetic is okay.
Yeah, but I'm like my mindset is not geared to counting backwards, and I was stunned. Anyway, I failed my one and only job for food, and a little bit humiliating.
Because you couldn't count change the way they wanted you to count change.
That's right. So failed miserably, got hit.
That is amazing.
Got punched in the stomach, and they didn't punch me in the stomach. That's fine. But
they broke your legs and threw you out the back door.
That's right. A la Casino. Look what they did to my hand, man. And then just went to telemarketing. I had a Sears credit card telemarketing. And so that was kind of a cool job. That was one of the things where I learned, although I'm not a salesperson, but if push comes to shove, I could hold my own. And,
You can do it. You can do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
And you are a little bit. I mean, you're independent substantially
Sure.
in the work that
Yeah.
you do. So you have to sell your services.
Yeah.
Telemarketing. That's a great one. I have a friend who put himself through college being a waiter at Red Lobster and selling MCI friends and family as a telemarketer.
MCI was the other big telemarketing job.
Uh-huh.
So if you needed to start somewhere,
Yep.
MCI was it
boy.
too.
Those were dark times
Those were
that
dark
we
times.
need not revisit.
Yeah, and there was some guy who would just like run the do the programming for the mainframe, and as I had my headset and working on the telemarketing, I would just look over and I said, man, that looks like an absolute cush and wonderful job of just like programming that mainframe. That's the kind of stuff that I want to do.
And
so it was kind of like that, clarity of vision for the future that I wanted to do.
yeah,
If I didn't take that job, who knows?
right. You would have been inspired with the vision of a life of software, and the fast food thing didn't work out. So here you are, and in the intervening years, which have been a few, what in your mind is the most interesting problem you've solved in that time? Now, a quick word from our sponsor. Confluent Developer, the podcast, is brought to you by Confluent Developer, the website, which has everything you need as a developer of data streaming systems. And it's completely free. We've got curriculum, hands-on exercises, executable tutorials, the online data streaming engineer certification, also free, a way to find a meetup near you, those are free. Everything is there. I really want you to be successful in your journey as a data streaming engineer, and this is the site that has what you need. Check it out at developer.confluent.io. That's developer.confluent.io. Now, back to the show.
I think there's always been many ones. I don't think I've ever had like the pinnacle of just like absolute success for one particular item, but multiple items from you compiling your first C++ code until you get it right, and you have that feeling for it. One time there was a little kerfuffle going on with a company I was with. This was kind of exciting. Maybe kind of illegal. Let's spice up your podcast, shall we?
Let's do it. I mean, I expect nothing less.
That's right. Got a call at like 11 p.m. and said there was some bad blood sort of things going on within the company, and they asked me to figure out what I could find, and so a little bit of a hack job, I guess, is what I'll call it. And it was kind of exciting because
security research.
Security research. There we go. It was at 11. I was new and just being felt needed at a critical moment at such an odd hour. Just that that dream of it's dark. You're driving down a dark highway, and you're going to try to figure things out, which should be impossible, but made it possible, and that was a.
Can you talk about the what was the security research all about, and what did you learn? What kind of system was it? What did you do?
No, there was just some abusive chatter going on within the company, and they wanted to know what kind of abusive chatter was going on. So it was up to me to find out on the secure channels, which weren't absolutely less secure. So
what kind of systems were they? Like Windows machines? Just interesting on a technical.
They were all Windows machines. Yeah, at the time they were all like Windows machines, and different chats that they had available in each of the machines. At the time, we had like a wide array of things. Actually, so one of the things that we had was Lotus Notes, which not related, but Lotus Notes, which led me to Java. So everything has just been like a stepping stone across the way.
How did that happen? How did Lotus Notes lead you to Java? That's
yeah.
Cool.
So Lotus Notes was just a document system. They asked me to push the boundaries on that. So I guess there's another exciting one. They asked me to push the boundaries on it. At the time, I didn't realize, but I knew it was a document-style database to where you could do purchase orders, invoices, and things like that. And
it was
we
kind
really
of like a relatively schemaless document indexing kind of system.
Yeah.
That
Is it schema
yeah.
list? Yeah, I guess so. Sure. And so whatever kind of documents you want, we really pushed the hell out of it and on what we could do. In retrospect, a lot of this should have been done on RDBMSs or things like that, but
Right.
we try to do as much as we can. And then Lotus Notes was like, hey, you got to check out this language called Java. And I had heard about Java already. I tried Java back in 1995 and failed miserably with a null pointer exception. I said, screw this. I'm never doing this again.
Narrator.
Yeah. Totally.
Was to have been the first of many.
That is, yeah. So the Lotus Notes was pushing this whole idea. And so I went to a Lotus Notes conference, I believe, in Palm Springs.
Nice.
And there was a guy named Bob Balaban who was doing a Java presentation on what is Java. He called it Java just to be weird about it, which I didn't get, but whatever.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, that was exciting. I'm going to base everything on this new language called Java. And so I decided, let's go to do this and try this out. And I love Java. And I decided, you know what, it'd be cool to have like just pure consulting based on this Java. And I thought everything was going to be awesome. That I was just going to be doing Java and XML. And that was it. The future was laid.
Yeah,
That's
the future was XML then, wasn't it?
That's right.
That made no sense to me at the time, but
it looked great.
Sure.
So I was like, sure,
it works.
Yeah. So then, from Java, did J2EE stuff and lots of excitement there. And I did a lot with Seam. Do you remember JBoss Seam?
I remember the name. I never used it.
Yeah, it was like a web framework, and I was like really good at it. I was really good at J2EE. You and I think, as well, JSPs and servlets.
Yeah, that was the start of my Java journey. There's we got another episode on. I think I talked about that on the other episode. Yeah, it was JSPs and not EJBs, but the early so-called Java beans. A strange name. Anyway, we don't need to get into that.
Yeah. But anyway, to your question of like all the different problems, many different problems, across, all these different technologies as to, what to solve and, every.
You want to dig into one that you really remember and is like a thing that made an impact that was hard to crack, or any way you want to slice it.
I think I will. I think getting my first, understanding of and implementing a big data architecture has been a really nice thing. And
there you go.
I think anyone who, solves a problem for that can just about do anything.
And that's been kind of what you've done for the last 10, 15 years with there's some Scala
I think
in there,
so.
But yeah.
And when you get that feeling of like that accomplishment of, yes, I took this, one message and filtered it, enriched it, and manipulated it, and did all these different kind of branching until you get to something at the very end that you wanted, and you create this like living being out of it. I think it's just one of those things that's just really exciting. So I'll put a little modern twist to it. I think successfully doing something like that, goes a long way.
Yeah, it does. And that's key stuff. And that continues to be the things you're involved with to this day.
Yeah, just, I think there's success in a lot
Awesome.
of things and how you go about doing things. And I'm still learning as well. I think one of the other recent things as well has been software architecture and designing things right, and been really into ports and adapters architecture as well. So I find that one to be just an absolute great ideal of what software should look like and how to design software so that way it's workable, it's maintainable, and it also has one of those things of everything is in its place, and I think that goes along.
Yeah. And a little bit relevant to my professional interest, you've done some work with event-driven architecture too, right?
I have, yes.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yep.
I love it. Yeah.
I seem to recall you got some talks and maybe like a class on that.
I do. I have Dev2Next, which is Venkat's conference at the end of September, I believe.
Ah,
I hope
nice.
I get that
Okay.
right.
Yes, my colleague Victor will be there with you. I will not. I think by the time this airs, that will already have happened. But yeah.
Yeah, so an event-driven architecture workshop. I was excited about it. I've been doing it for a while, and I keep changing a little bit. So the thing where I was excited, told you I was excited about having that feeling of like, hey, something just happened in one particular microservice. Bring that in and like chain reaction, and then perhaps on some other microservice you get a different manifestation of what it is that you're looking for, and linking all that up. Just absolutely exciting. So that's what the EDA workshop is all about.
That's amazing. All right. Well, I'd say, go register and go there. By the time this airs, I think it will be in the past. But if you can catch Daniel talking about these topics, you should do it.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Daniel, thanks for coming on today.
All right. Yeah, absolutely.